Is it possible to beat Undertale as a pacifist without dodging? Hey there guys, NovemberJoy here, and I've been getting into challenge runs recently. I've watched quite a few of them, and if you have too, you might think this challenge seems a little familiar. Well, that's because it is. I was heavily inspired by another YouTuber called Skip the Tutorial. Check out his run as well, because it's great, and there was one thing he said that I couldn't let slip by.
Which means we have full pick on which route we take. Or, at least we would, if they were all possible. But since Pacifist doesn't give us any of the levels needed to outlive bosses, and Genocide has this, it looks neutral as our only way out.
I can understand dismissing Genocide since the attacks are too strong to weather and you can't exactly grind more levels to make it easier, but I was surprised to hear him dismiss Pacifist so quickly, especially since he didn't actually mention any major issues with a Pacifist route besides low HP. Of course, I couldn't let a challenge like this slip by. It's time to find out if we can beat Undertale with the true Pacifist ending without dodging. Now, let's lay out the rules of this challenge. Dodging is defined as doing anything in the bullet box while there are bullets on the screen that could potentially harm us. Basically, don't touch the controls when you're being attacked. There are a couple of things that require you to move your soul, but they thankfully don't have any bullets. However, this does mean I'll have a harder time than Skip did with several fights. Everything else is fair, as long as we don't abuse glitches or lock ourselves out of the true pacifist ending. I also have 3 optional challenges ahead of me. I'll see if I can beat Asgore, beat Hotland without using a spider item, and beat the entire run without needing Temi armor. With the rules out of the way, let's get into the run. The Ruins is a great introduction to the new challenges we face and how we're going to be playing this run. If this were a neutral run, I'd be picking fights with everything I see just because we'd want to raise our level and HP as high as we can to survive. But I'm a good pacifist child, which means the only thing I'm gaining from any fights is money. We don't need too much money for the early parts of the game, and later parts will allow us to get as much money as we need, which means that trying to fight won't get us anywhere. In fact, quite a few enemies are incredibly hard or impossible to spare for us, so our main strategy is to spare the things we can spare from fights and run away from everything else. Thankfully, there aren't any major challenges in the Ruins. In fact, our most challenging enemy we can face is Vegetoid. The standard method of sparing Vegetoid requires you to touch a green bullet. Without being able to move, all we could do is hope it bounces into us. Instead, we'll have to beat it up until we can devour it if we really want to spare it. Even though we might be better served by running, we need to get at least 7 gold so we can buy a spider donut. We might need it later. After a little more wandering, we come to the first real boss of the game, Toriel. This one might be a roadblock that would prevent us from continuing on, except she refuses to finish us off. She'll take us all the way down to 2 HP and question our decision to attempt this run, but she'll let us go after we spare her enough times. Good thing, too, since most of her attacks beat us up pretty badly. Afterwards, we lick our wounds and we're off to Snowden. Snowden doesn't give us much of a challenge. The dogs could be trouble if we weren't able to 2-turn spare them all with the stick. While we're here though, we will save our fight with Doggo, who is one of the only enemies who won't harm us when we stay still. Outside of that, Snowden is relatively uneventful until we get to Papyrus. Papyrus is an interesting case. He seems easy at first, with most of his attacks completely missing even our stationary soul before he turns us blue. Once he does, we're stuck at the bottom of the box, subject to the effects of gravity. With this, we'll be getting hit by every attack he throws our way, since all of them are on the ground, and we'll just get pummeled into the dirt. But he shows us mercy by only reducing our HP to 1 and capturing us instead of killing us. Not only does he refuse to kill us, but we can get past him by letting him capture us 3 times in a row. If it weren't for this, I'm not sure this run would even be possible with the limited tools we have this early in the game. As we move on to Waterfall, all I can say is that this is where the challenge run really starts. The enemies we face get much harder, as they also get harder to spare. In particular, one required encounter with Washwa almost requires us to use the flee command, since there's almost no chance of the green bullet required to spare it being shot towards our stationary soul. However, we also find some very useful tools for our run here. The first tool we find is dog residue. Normally this is a very useless and very gross item, but it's invaluable for us because it can randomly give us dog salad. I've learned to love and hate dog salad at the same time. It's excellent because we can generate it infinitely, and it's also infuriating because it's so random. There are 4 possibilities when we eat dog salad. Bones that give us 2 HP, a fried tennis ball that gives us 10, tastes yappy for 34, and literally garbage for a full heal. This basically means we have a 25% chance of nothing, 25% chance of getting half our HP, and a 50% chance of a full heal, and these are odds we're going to have to rely on. Speaking of which, we finally hit the first real roadblock of the run. No, it's not Undyne like you were expecting, it's the Mad Dummy. This is normally a joke encounter that's meant to be easy, but for us, it's an epic uphill struggle as he effortlessly beats our soul into the ground. The fight is entirely based on luck. We can't direct his magic projectiles to hit him, which means the length of the battle is entirely out of our hands. We can't survive as long as his fight demands with only 8 healing items, so we need to use dog residue during the fight to try and score some dog salad. Then, even if we score dog salad, it's totally random whether it will actually heal us or not. This is probably the most aggravating fight of the run. Thankfully, Napstablook bails us out right when it seems like we can't take anymore. Afterwards, we get to one of the most important parts of this run, Temi Village. I'm not sure if this run would be entirely possible without it, because this place has 2 extremely useful functions for us. First of all, our dog residue turns it into an infinite source of money, something I'm severely lacking, and it also gives us the chance to obtain the Temi armor. The Temi armor is the best piece of armor in the game, and makes almost everything a cakewalk, which is why I'm going to do everything in my power to beat this run without it. This is also where we get access to yet another set of tools that are especially useful, the Torn Notebook and Cloudy Glasses. The Cloudy Glasses aren't quite as useful since they massively drop our defense, but the Torn Notebook is going to be our weapon of choice for the rest of the game. It may have pitiful attack power, but its secondary effect is the important part. It increases how many invincibility frames we get after being hit. That little boost is just what we need to lessen the damage we take every turn, since every hit we don't take is another hit away from death. From there, it's smooth sailing until we reach Undyne. Now, this fight is going to be very different and very difficult. In Skip's run, he used a technicality to be able to block the spears and have a much easier time with this fight. But my different rule set means I'm not allowed to move that shield at all. As a result, we're stuck taking a beating from almost all her attacks. Except her first one, that's still a freebie. This fight is almost deceptively easy at first, since we can run the moment our soul turns red and heal before she can attack when she does catch us again. But the fact we have to survive 3 encounters with her makes this a war of attrition. We will need to hope to score some dog salad, but this isn't anywhere near as hard as Mad Dummy was because of one simple trick: challenge her from the act menu. Normally, challenging her is a bad idea unless you're looking for a challenge, but the increased bullet speed actually helps us to take less hits from her attacks due to invincibility frames. With that in mind, we can get away to Hotland much easier than expected. Of course, next up is Metaton's quiz show. We can't move to answer the questions, so he decides to cruelly torture us with electric shocks until we're on the brink of death. Thankfully for us, he skips to the last 2 questions, but we can't take anymore, the first of which gets answered for you. Second question though, we can't wait out this question. It'll go on forever, which means we have to move. However, because none of the answers are considered wrong, there's no way we can take damage here, which means I'm allowed to move for this and scrape by to the rest of Hotland with 1 HP. Hotland is a bit weird. The enemies here are actually less dangerous than in Waterfall, with easier sparing methods and attacks that don't hit us quite as much. You do, however, have a fight with Royal Guard 1 and 2 coming up. They're mini-bosses, but they're still plenty dangerous, especially to us at our 20 HP. Thankfully, the sparing method of cleaning 2's armor is still possible, since the armor stays right near the middle of the bullet box, but it'll touch us every now and then. If we're not careful with our healing though, they can still take us down without much trouble. The rest of Hotland is relatively uneventful outside of Muffet. Trust me, I tried. I tried really hard to beat Muffet without skipping her fight, but I just couldn't do it. I was doing well until her second Demon Cupcake attack. Even if we approach with full health and get great RNG during the attack, we'll never survive the 8 hits she puts us through with only 20 HP. Paying her on the turn before doesn't help either, since our lowered HP from the previous attack means we'll just die even faster. I was able to do it with Temi armor, but it felt like cheating. I just ended up reloading my save file and skipping her fight with the spider donut. Optional challenge failed, sadly. Next up, we have the core, an area with some difficulty even for a normal player, so you can guess how we fare in here. Our entire goal here is to get through as quickly as possible while encountering as few enemies as we possibly can. They can all be very deadly to us, especially Night Knight. Fighting a Night Knight is entirely dependent on what attacks it uses. If it uses a spear attack, we're either dead or incredibly close to death, since it does 6 damage per hit. I got lucky and didn't have too many encounters on my way through the Sage's Path and to the end. But now, we need to go back, farm some money from Temi, and get the best inventory possible because a new roadblock is next. Mettaton EX is an incredibly difficult, but also incredibly strategic boss for this run, since we're not dodging or shooting. There are two non-lethal ways to beat him. Either we can survive until he loses his legs and get to 10,000 ratings, or get to 12,000 ratings to end it early, both made harder by not shooting anything for free ratings. Unless we're willing to abuse dog salad RNG again, there's no way we can ever survive long enough for him to lose his legs. So this fight is going to be a mad dash 12,000 ratings before we run out of steam. For this purpose, I equipped cloudy glasses and stashed the cowboy hat and stained apron in my inventory, leaving me with 6 slots for MTT brand healing items. Switching armor during the fight gives us an instant plus 1500 ratings boost, which we're badly going to need to have a chance of survival. And the MTT brand food gives us a significant ratings boost every time we have to heal. Even with all this preparation, we still need a perfect turn-by-turn strategy and a bit of luck during certain attacks. Essentially, we have to spend our first 2 turns switching out our armor, ending with a stained apron for the extra HP healing. Because of that and the violence boosts every time we get hit, we'll already be at 7,000. We use the face stake for an instant plus 700 boost, heal turn on the next turn to gain extra plus 100 ratings every time we get hit, and heal right before the quiz. As long as we include the word leg without any profanity or insults, we're getting a plus 350 boost, but we need to have full health to heal turn in preparation for his first soul attack. His soul attacks are interesting in that I thought they'd go on forever if you didn't shoot back, but that is actually not the case. Instead, I'm actually here hoping to get hit more often to get the plus 100 ratings from every hit, since he's reluctant to kill us while we're heal turning, and does less damage when we have less health. We have to heal again, and we want to give him a paper cut right before he puts us on the dance floor for plus 300 ratings. Doesn't matter how hard, just that we hit him. From here, we'll heal and heal turn as much as we can until the second bomb attack, where we'll use our final healing item and heal turn for his second soul attack. Whether or not we win here depends entirely on our ratings and how many times he hits us with this attack. If we're down to around 2 or 3 HP and our ratings are at least 11,500 afterwards, we can just barely snag a win by the skin of our teeth by posing with extremely low HP for final plus 500 boost. Whew. I did not think beating Mettaton without dodging or shooting would be so hard, or so fun. After this point, we can take on another optional challenge. We don't have to fight Asgore because we have previous save data to dodge having to fight Omega Flowey, but it won't stop us from doing it just to show that we can. Beforehand though, we'll need to prep a little. And by prep, I mean grind 2,100 gold from Temi so we can fill our inventory with the pie and 7 legendary heroes. Once we have that, barring exceptionally bad RNG at the start of the fight, we've actually already won! Talking to him 3 times will drop his attack and defense, then we can munch the pie as our first healing item to further drop his attack and defense. With his attack and defense dropped twice, he'll only be dealing 3 damage per hit, and we can deal good damage even with the torn notebook. We'll need to eat a lot more than what we need for a balanced breakfast, but the attack boosts will only help us take down his HP that much faster. Would have thought Asgore would be the easiest boss we can't skip. I don't know, but that's one optional challenge complete. Now that we've gotten that optional challenge out of the way, let's finally get to the last leg of our true pacifist journey, the true lab. This is it, the make it or break it point of the challenge, where the difficulty spikes high enough to be noticed even by normal players. Not only is it a difficulty spike, but we also can't leave since the elevator stops working as soon as we enter, which means we need to be fully prepared before entering. With 7 legendary heroes, way too many hot dogs, and plenty of other things in reserve, you'd think we'd be fine, right? Let's just get down to business with the amalgamates. Memory Head isn't overly difficult, just hope that none of the Jeff the Killer faces spawn right in the center of the board, or near it, and you should make it through mostly unscathed. Afterwards, however, things get a little dicey. From there, you can choose from 3 amalgamates to fight next, Andogany, Reaper Bird, and Lemon Bread. I initially tried to go after Andogany first. Terrible mistake on my part. It has 2 attacks, firing spears out of a dog that are so clustered that it's incredibly unlikely to miss you. sending a rocket dog after you that homes in on your position. With these attacks, you'll be taking so much damage that you'll never be able to act without dying unless you have absurd luck, and you have to use 5 acts to be able to spare in Dogony. Dozens of attempts went by without getting any closer to victory, and the chances of getting those acts off consecutively is so small that I didn't feel like trying anymore. I even tried equipping cloudy glasses in the hopes that it'd help my chances of not getting hits, but they didn't seem to do much here. Eventually, I decided to butt my head against a different wall, Reaper Bird. This one wasn't giving me much hope either. Even though you only have to use 3 acts, this one's not much better in terms of attacks, despite giving you a free turn at the start of the fight. It also has 2 main attacks, one where the Everyman walks forward while firing butterflies in a random pattern towards you, and one where the Everyman fires copies of his own head that weave all across the bullet box. These attacks seemed impossible since the heads are fired so thickly and the Everyman walks on top of our soul during the butterfly attack, but it wasn't as hopeless as it seemed, especially with cloudy glasses. Normally, they cause us to take more damage since they drop our defense so much. The extra invincibility frames they provide are just enough that we might dodge a hit or two if we're lucky. And get lucky I did. About a dozen attempts later, I got the necessary luck for the heads to miss me and for the butterflies to also miss me right afterwards to be able to spare Reaper Bird. I was legitimately starting to lose hope there. Next up, I went to try to take on Lemon Bread. It's not an easy fight by any means, since it's also based on luck, but it was a lot less difficult than either of the previous 2 fights were. For this one, all I have to hope for is that the bite attack has its safe spot in just the right place to miss me so I can safely act. It might have just been good luck, but this one was done in just 2 attempts with the help of the healing items I had left. Of course, that only leaves in Doggy, and, well... This is the part where you're waiting to hear how I did it, but sadly, I didn't. The RNG is just too harsh on this fight, and I need absurd luck far too many times consecutively to be able to win. Mission failed, right? Challenge run over? Well, yes, but actually no. There is actually a fast strategy to spare Dogony as soon as the fight starts. The only problem is, it requires either the stick, which I sold for money during one of the multiple Temi grinding sessions, or the Hush Puppy, which I didn't even know existed. Since I can't leave the True Lab after entering, this effectively means I'm stuck here without the ability to ever finish this fight, and by association, the rest of the game. I was forced to reset and play the entire game over again, just rushing through to get back to this point with the necessary items. If you feel that me dodging while playing through the game again with the same fights I've already recorded invalidates the challenge, then I understand. But I didn't feel like doing the entire run all over again from the beginning. Thankfully, Dogony is cake with the proper items. He won't launch a single attack at us, in contrast to how dangerous he was before. Afterwards, defeating Dogony opens the way to Snowy, the final Amalgamate, who is barely functional. As a result, most of her bullets don't even make it into the bullet box, let alone actually get close to hitting me. This is one of 2 fights in this run that I was able to no-hit. The next fight, however, won't be so easy. Beforehand, though, we get to meet up with our friends as Flowey's setup succeeds, and the things they say to encourage us feel a lot more meaningful in this run. This is the end. Osriel Dreamer, the final fight standing in our way to the ending we've been working towards. This is probably the strangest fight in the entire run, because it's literally impossible for us to die. We can drop to 0 HP and have our soul split in half, but it'll just refuse and we'll be back with full HP. On top of that, we also have 2 acts to help us survive. Dream to fill our inventory with healing items, and Hope to boost defense and let us take a fatal hit with 1 hit point remaining. With all this in mind, how challenging could a fight like this possibly be? The answer is, a lot more than you'd think. Asgore's damage output is incredibly high, comparable to a non-debuffed Asgore. If we're not hoping, most of his attacks will kill us very quickly from full HP, and his attacks are very unlikely to miss us. No blue attacks here, that's for sure. When he does kill us, we don't have to start the entire fight over, but it does take us back a few turns. The only way to progress the fight is to survive past the point where we died last time. In early parts of the fight, this isn't too difficult with him using less harsh attacks, but it all falls apart once he introduces his most difficult attacks and patterns. I quickly learned to hate Chaos Saber and Chaos Blaster more than I thought I could hate something from Undertale. Chaos Saber's attack pattern goes like this. He slices and dices you until you're one hit away from death, and then surrounds you with sparks. You can survive easily by hoping, but if you're not, all you can do is pray that all the sparks completely miss your stationary soul, which almost never happens. Chaos Blaster is a whole other problem though. Even with the torn notebook and cloudy glasses, it hits for so much damage and so many times that you cannot survive it without hoping. Even if you do hope your way through it, you still need at least 14 HP left to weather the massive damage it'll deal. The thing that finally killed me though is that he's entirely pattern based and will use the same attacks in the same order each time. This led to me getting stuck in a star-blazing Chaos Blaster Chaos Saber loop for about 20 minutes, hoping for 2 incredible strokes of luck one after another to make any progress, only to find out the next attack afterwards was another Chaos Blaster. Sadly, there's no way Chaos Blaster or Chaos Saber can ever miss us with the way they target our soul in the bullet box, and I can't possibly have enough HP and defense to survive a Chaos Blaster after a Chaos Saber. There's only one tool left, and it's the one I wanted to forego using at all, Temi Armor. When they say it makes any battle an easy victories, they're not kidding. With it on, I can survive Chaos Blaster without needing to hope, and the rest of his attacks become a total non-issue. Even with this incredibly OP equipment though, I'll still die a few times. What matters though is making it to the second phase of the fight. Hyper Goner will leave us with 1 hit point, no question, but now I can die as much as I want without any consequences, and saving the lost souls of our friends isn't too difficult when they can barely hurt me. Afterwards, we save the world with the power of friendship, and that's it. End credits. This challenge is officially complete. This was actually a pretty fun run at times, with all the extra strategy and prep I had to do. It made me really think deep about Undertale's mechanics for once, and try out things I'd never even thought about before. My favorite part was the Metaton fight. It was hard, but it was also the most strategic fight in the entire run, where I really had to consider my actions and scrape together every last rating point I could get my hands on. The RNG reliance wasn't super fun, but what can you do when you're playing games completely the wrong way? It was really sad that I only got 1 optional objective though. I was doing really well at not using Temi Armor until the final fight forced me to put it on. Still nice to see the hardest fight in Skip's run become the easiest fight in my run though. Anyway, I think it's about time we wrap this up. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and hope you'll tune in next time for whatever run I end up doing next. I already have footage for a challenge run of Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, but I've also got plenty of other ideas, and I'm always open to suggestions from you guys. That's for later though. For now, goodbye.